Alright guys, before we start today's video, I just want to introduce you to something that really means a lot to me. Introducing to you my Captain Underpants wedgie tower. I am totally not obsessed. Captain Underpants has always been a book series that was a part of my childhood, and as you can tell, as cool as these are, I am missing the 11th and 12th book. I did have them at some point because I remember holding them, though I could not find them at the moment, so I just went to look for it somewhere else and just watch a retrospective and learn about the plot. So I have enough memory to know what happens in both those books, so they will both be featured in today's ranking video. So yeah, welcome back to another video, guys. I don't really know what to say. Here is the tier list for Captain Underpants books. Alright, so we are going to be ranking these books in a tier list, because, you know, I do that most of the time. So, as you can tell, we have got all 12 books down here. Book 11 and 12 will be a tiny bit harder to rank, though I know the plot well enough, and yeah, that's what I really have to say. We are going to be ranking them in release date order, so we're just going to go straight into the chase and start off with The Adventures of Captain Underpants. And this is a book I have a lot of experience with. I know quite a lot of the dialogue because I've read it several times. It'll always be the book I grab from the shelf. And while I don't remember what was my first Captain Underpants book, this one was probably one of the first ones. So, to start with a few things, yes, while it is extremely simple, meaning it definitely isn't the best one, I will admit, it is still really funny and aged well. It really holds to this point. I feel like the best part, and this goes to some other books we're going to cover later, is those really funny moments. For example, George and Harold saying, "There's no way we will get busted," and then the next chapter is called Busted. I feel like those jokes are just really funny. Also, the comic book, this may sound weird to say, but the comic book's one of my favourites. I really like the joke they did with the antagonist in their comic book. So there is a scene where none of the students like the cafeteria food, so they throw it all away. And then it comes to life, and then there's a clip saying, "I am the inedible hunk," which is supposed to be like a low-budget version of the Incredible Hulk. That is genuinely really funny. I feel like that's something that should be talked about more, because that always gets me on the inside. They even had a little spelling mistake, so I feel like that's really funny as well. And yeah, Mr. Crop is iconic. He is pure evil in this book. You can tell just by his antics that what he does with George and Harold is generally pure evil. Like, he forces them to work all the time and they have no freedom. Sure, they are naughty students, but Mr. Crop still doesn't handle it very well. In the movies, he is just kind of lonely and you feel bad for him. I think it's personally quite relatable. But in the books, he doesn't have a reason to be like this. He is just pure evil. So, yeah, it's nice to see how intimidating the teacher can be in this book, or the principal technically. And when he turns into Captain Underpants, it's also iconic, and since it's simple, it's kept rather, you know. And the flipper-armor is also decent. All the flipper-armors are hilarious, but I don't think I'll need to talk about them because it's kind of self-explanatory. And this book is a lot of fun, and it earns a high C tier. Yeah, I know that's not very high. So let me explain. Captain Underpants, the very first book, is going down here only because of how much better some of the books further in the series are. If this was a solo book, it would be way higher, but simply just because it's absolutely carried by some other books, it doesn't deserve to go higher, I don't think. And yes, as you can tell, F tier is not on here. I did not want to include an F tier, because simply none of them deserve it. I feel like they're all pretty good to be above F tier. Though there's a couple that are a bit low on the list, so we have got D tier. D tier exists. Alright, let's look for book 2. Where you hiding? There you are. Captain Underpants and the Attack of the Talking Toilets. While this book may sound super brain rot, trust me, it's absolutely hilarious. And, yeah, I don't know why, I have a soft spot for this one. So out of the very original books, when I say like extremely classic books, I'm mainly referring to the first 4 books. And the first book and third book I read all the time, because, you know, I saw them a lot, but this one I only just started reading recently again, so maybe that's a bit of bias. But I really like the opening, I really like the I really like Melvin's introduction. I really like the comedy. My only slight nitpick is a lot of it is kind of the same as the first book. For example, the comic with the cafeteria thing is basically the taco one from the first book, but this time it's with rat sandwiches. Okay, but yeah, the toilets are iconic villains in this series, and aside another character we're going to move on to, they are probably the most memorable ones. Now, I personally think this is better than the first book because I feel like some of George and Harold's pranks are actually really funny here. I don't really have much to say, but out of some of the classic books, it's probably one of my favourites. Without much explanation, I'm going to put it in an A tier. And yes, the busted joke returns in this chapter as well, so that's pretty great. And the end bit's also good. I really like the little final climax of Captain Underpants in the toilets, and like the fact that Captain Underpants, there was a lot more I was going to say about this, but I kind of just forgot. I'm sorry guys, that's not really quality content. Alright, book 3, the very front of this tier list. So, book 3 was the first one I read, like not in general, but like as of recently, this was the first book I read, and because of that I was rather interested. The opening is funny, like with the sign thing yet again, and we also have pretty decent comics. As lame as the antagonists are in this book, like generally when I first see the antagonists in this book, the first thing they say is, "And we're going to take over the world." How original. Anyways, a lot of characters in this series say that's their motive, but with other characters, they are actually very close to succeeding that. These characters just say it for the sake of saying it. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the villains, though I really like the concept. I think it's really good. So, Captain Underpants and the invasion of the incredibly naughty cafeteria ladies from outer space, and the subsequent assault of the equally evil lunchroom zombie nerds has a ton to like. It's got a ton of concepts, and I really like that Dandelion character. And this is also the book that got Captain Underpants' powers, so it's also the reason some of the future books worked. And yeah, I'd say it had a lot of funny moments, like with the joke George and Harold made about the homework privileges once the lunch privileges got taken away. And yeah, I really like the amount of Mr. Krupp that's featured here. I feel like this is a book that, he's in quite a bit of. So there is this chapter that I really love. This is what I used to be obsessed with this. It was the Mr. Krupp's Crispy Krupp Cakes chapter. I personally, not only that joke is already really funny, but there is also a scene where the baking for Mr. Krupp's Krupp Cakes goes horribly wrong, and it covers half the text. Wow, this book has some creativity. So yeah, Captain Underpants and the invasion of the incredibly naughty cafeteria ladies from outer space, and the subsequent assault of the equally evil lunchroom zombie nerds. I approve. I personally think, due to more like plots and concepts, it's definitely better than the first one. But the second one, honestly, no, not really. I think I like the second one a bit more. But yeah, Captain Underpants and the invasion of the incredibly naughty cafeteria ladies from outer space, and the subsequent assault of the equally evil lunchroom zombie nerds is going to get B-tier. It's horrible, B-tier, yeah. Captain Underpants and the perilous plot of Professor Poopy Pants, the most iconic villain in the series. He gets better later on, trust me. But yeah, this contains a great scene. I'm just gonna go right to the scene where Professor Poopy Pants grabs a giant pencil and starts writing on the board that if people don't stop making fun of him, he will also give them goofy names, and they will have to accept it too, because he technically could take over the world. Because unlike the villains in the third book, he actually probably could do it, and it's proved later on in the series, trust me. So yeah, not only he is iconic, but he is definitely the funniest character in the series. I'm sorry, Captain Underpants, you're second. Yeah, comment down below what name you got on this page I'm about to show on the screen right here. So yeah, that's great, and I personally this is like peak humor for younger people and older people right here. Like, I could imagine a lot of kids from elementary school or primary school, whatever you want to call it, really enjoying this. Like, brain rot now isn't that great, but I think that this book nailed it. It's classic. Yeah, I don't need to explain with this one. This one's going in A tier. And the reason why not S tier? Well, because we get better. It is definitely the best out of the very originals. Now, Captain Underpants and the Wrath of the Wicked Wedgie Women. A lot of people have this one really high up, but I personally think it's not as good as people think. So, I was kind of doing a little montage where I continuously read these books, and I remember this is the book that I found out of some of the very first ones. I thought this one was the least funny, so that drags it down a bit. This may sound like something controversial to say, because trust me, I bet there's still a lot of funny moments in it. But compared to the other 4 books, I just didn't find this one as funny, so that's a bit of a downgrade. I also really like Miss Ribble as a character in this book, so that's great. And there's a really good Mr. Krupp scene where he just does that really iconic pose that deserves to be a meme. This one I don't have much to say about, though it is still going to get a very acceptable, we're going to put it in B tier. This might be a pretty controversial spot. I think most people think this is better than the 3rd book, but nah. I personally just had more fun with the 3rd book, to be honest. Alright, Booger Boy, the 6th book in the series, and the one that focuses a lot on Melvin. I already appreciate that. This one's got great humour, though unfortunately, quite a few of my pages in this book have been ripped, and that makes me think that this is the oldest book I have out of the bunch, so maybe this was my first one, I don't know. But yeah, this one is extremely hilarious. My only con is, if I remember, Captain Underpants kind of got violated. I don't really think he did much in the final battle. And another massive con I have with this book is this was definitely the start of the Captain Underpants doesn't appear as much, or Mr. Krupp. Like, generally, after this specific point, he doesn't appear as much. It's kind of sad. But yeah, this book is still going to go really high on the list. I don't really remember some of the jokes while filming this video now, but while editing this video I'll probably show you some bits I liked, unless I'm lazy, because that would contain me needing to scroll through the whole book again. I really liked what they did with Melvin's quotes. The "you're so immature" stuff is repeated so much and it gets really funny. The comic is hilarious. You know, Melvin is the reason this is going to go as high as it is going to be right now. Trust me, I'm putting this really high up on the list. Melvin is hilarious this entire story, and I really like the concept. Once again, very creative. Bias, but S tier. And yes, you know, I can't help it. It's just generally a great book. On the other hand, the second part is kind of mid. Now, I get that people are going to disagree with this one, but there's a ton of reasons as to why I don't like this one. Yes, don't get me wrong, it's still funny in some ways, and what they did with Mr. Krupp or Mr. Melvin and Melvin in this book is rather funny at times, but I'm just not used to it. Because I feel like a Captain Underpants book at least needs some of the iconic characters. Mr. Krupp is included here. So, the issue here is, since his personality is not the same, it basically feels like we've lost one element. I also feel like this is the book that introduces time travel. And don't get me wrong, while time travel was definitely had some of the best books, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I'm really mixed with it. Because, I've definitely been a bigger fan of the OG stories. That were just simple, relatable school stories. Now, don't get me wrong, this is still fine. But it gets confusing, and I'm just not the best of it. I'm kind of mixed with the time travel story. But yeah, we don't get as much of it. We get way more later. And although I'm very mixed with time travel, I gotta admit, it landed some of the best books in the series, so we'll get to that. But yeah, that's something, I guess. And if I remember, I just didn't really laugh as much with this book. So I'm just going to put this in a low C tier, and I feel like this is the first book that is going to land lower than the original one. Book 8, very controversial. I did not like this book that much. I already smell the fact that people aren't going to agree with this one. I literally went onto the community rank, and half the tier lists, this book was in S tier. Oh god, I really have made a hot take. I am so sorry, guys. But yeah, you'll see why I don't like this one in a second. I get people are going to find my opinion very bad here, but I just generally didn't. I'll get them this. The concept was pretty creative, and the main book cover looks incredible. I love that little turquoise looking colour. But yeah, I like what they did with the reverse thing. But yeah, this book goes deep into time travel, and I guess it was fine. And don't get me wrong, it still has its funny moments, but that's mostly in one bit. So my biggest con already, you know how Captain Underpants is in the title? He only has like 5 pages, not including Captain Blunderpants, which is basically the opposite of Captain Underpants. That doesn't count as Captain Underpants. The Captain Underpants himself only has a couple of pages. There is one really funny page of him with him and his signs where he's just chilling in his house. Yeah, there's one page with that where Jordan and Harold go and get his help. One bit where he has a flipperama. One bit where he has actually a pretty good joke with Captain Blunderpants where they both snap their fingers, and then it starts raining, and then he just wanders off, and after that he doesn't come back. So while the elements are creative, I just didn't like it very much. I thought it was definitely one of the least funny ones again, and since I was getting to a point where I was kind of binging these books, I was rushing it a little bit more, which may be a bit of an unfair way to rank it because it means I gave it less chance, but I was 100% sure I was reading it all correctly. We also have Sulu and Crackers, which I forgot to mention. They exist. I don't know. Like, they appear in this book, though they appear way more later. But yeah, lack of Mr. Crop is a massive minus in my opinion, and not as much humour in my opinion. I don't know. I feel like this book's just kind of overrated. It is going to land in the sloppy D tier. Not enough wedgies here. Not enough wedgies delivered with brilliant humour. So it is going to land lower on the list. And yeah, so aside from that one scene where Captain Underpants actually does arrive, it's just not really that great. I am very sorry, Book 8 fans. On the other hand, the next book is an absolute banger. I'm not even kidding. Book 9 was such a relief after Book 7 and 8, because as you can tell, Book 7 and 8 are the lowest on the list. And Book 9 completely recovered my feelings from going through these two books, as they both actually... Like, don't get me wrong, they're still fine, but not as funny, man. I'm just sorry, I'm so sorry. Book 9 is a brilliant book. I'm not even kidding, it's up there. It lowers down on time travel a bit because of the middle half, but we'll get to that. Now, I'm just going to describe the things that this book's already done better. I could go on for ages. Mr. Crop has a lot more time on the screen. Tippy Tinkle Trousers, which is his new name, is back. He was Hoopy Pants from the 4th book. And he is way funnier. I'm not sure about that one actually, but yeah, he's still funny. And yeah, so those two icons are back, and they have a pretty good scene in the opening. Captain Underpants appears quite early in the book, which hyped me up at first because I was thinking, what if there's a bit where Captain Underpants loses and has to recover from that and come back later, which would have been good, but that never happened. And yeah, it goes more back to basics. Like, don't get me wrong, time travel is still very present, but not as much. And the flashback is the sweetest scene ever. I actually felt so bad for Harold. There is a scene that introduces Harold when he was like 6 years old, and he was getting bullied. George defended Harold, and then they became friends, did comics together, and they also pranked the bullies in multiple ways. It shows how the bully was actually the nephew of Mr. Crop, I think. Yeah, nephew. And Mr. Crop was always biased for him. Mr. Crop has a decent amount of time in the flashbacks, and there's, I don't remember the name of the ghost, I think it was Wedgie Maggie, but yeah, they appear in this story. I find that concept of George and Harold terrifying the bullies with a ghost is amazing, and it's very clever too. Even I didn't notice this till the end, but that exact ghost would also be the ghost the bullies got mixed up with Tippy Tinkle Trousers at the end of the book. So this entire flashback is just so sweet, like, generally, like, it's so sweet seeing young George and Harold, and they have some pretty decent scenes, and the bullies are so unlikable that you can defend George and Harold here. And the next part I'm going to talk about is the end bit, which is a pretty good ending, to be fair. We have Tippy Tinkle Trousers rewinding time and ending up in the same universe as the bullies, and since at this point Captain Underpants near the start of the book had already ripped off the torso of Tippy Tinkle Trousers' robot, it was just legs, and it made it look identical to the ghost that the bullies were scared of, making them encounter each other, and Tippy Tinkle Trousers freezes the bullies. Yes, this book is absolutely fantastic. I don't know what to say. This is definitely an easy S tier. Now moving on to book 10, which in my personal opinion has the best cover out of all of them. It looks really prehistoric, and that would make sense because it technically is the most prehistoric out of all of these. It's got a nice little yellow background and just like a very dinosaur vibe background, which is what I love to see. I used to be obsessed with this background when I was younger. Anyways, this contains possibly the most time travel, and yes, as confused as I got, I can at least admit I spot a lot of funny stuff in this book, such as the I hope joke near the end of the book. Very clever. And there is also a scene with Tippy Tinkletrousers like traveling back in time. We see a bit of Mr. Crop, that's great, because he's been suffering from lack of screen time recently. And yeah, there's a lot of scenes of him turning into Mr. Crop and Captain Underpants again, so that's pretty funny. And Tippy Tinkletrousers also encounters cavemen, and yeah, it's all pretty interesting. The cavemen's fear of Tippy, and George and Howard write a little comic with just drawings. It's pretty creative, and they show, I'm not even kidding, as evil as Tippy is, he absolutely suffers in this book, and his humour just lands every time he like messes up. And near the end of the book, this is a little flashback from what I said about book 4, by the way. I hated all the time how all these villains' motives were taking over the world, especially the ones in the third story, and the first one as well. Well, in this book, Tippy actually succeeds in doing that very nearly, so that's pretty incredible. And the time travel thing, since that exists now, I can at least give Tippy this. It makes the take over the world motive make way more sense, because it makes more sense. Yeah, we get a bit of Crackers and Sulu, and yeah, the opening is also pretty decent. I was a bit mixed with the opening because I was like, oh, how's this going to turn out? But then it all went back to normal eventually. The ending is great. There is a nice little lesson from George and Howard saying, be yourself. This is such a good book, man. And I just have good memories from it too. I could go on forever, once again, just like book 9. Even though I factored like book 9 is the king of all these books, I think I'm going to put book 10 as my favourite book. Like, I'm just so fond of it. Book 9 and 10 are definitely the peak of Captain Underpants. Which is saying something, because they're both time travel books, and that I'm really mixed with time travel books. Back to the future vibes though. Alright, book 11. This is where we start to go to books I don't know about as much. But yeah, this takes an interesting turn. So, I don't remember what it was, but I'm pretty sure it was like a juice. Something was shot into space, and wow, how convenient. It landed just by the robot and the Turbo Toilet 2000. This makes the Turbo Toilet 2000 have memories and get revenge. There is a really cool scene, like chase scene, with the Turbo Toilet 2000 just causing wrath and destruction in the city. Or town, I don't know. So yeah, that is really entertaining to watch. And another thing I'll give this book is, yes, like I said, time travel is still present, but nowhere near as much. So it feels kind of more normal. It also contains the return of a scene of Mr. Crop telling George and Howard off like he would in the old books, like every time they were naughty in school. So that's a little bit of a nostalgia revisit. And yeah, we get a bit of Captain Underpants too, which is really entertaining. This just brings back good vibes, to be honest. And there's also a very interestingly dark scene where George and Howard are suffering so much from like all the work. And yeah. So that is a rather interesting take. Like, it's the scene where George and Howard get so tired that they can't really do anything. That's a very interesting take for a book. But yeah, like, it's just a fine book. It's around the same level as the first book for me. And since I don't know as much about it, that also lowers it a bit. So I'm just going to put it in a high C tier. I think that is rather fair. Or since I actually know, because the original one is kind of iconic and humour. And speaking a book that I found really funny is in C tier, I guess it should go below The Adventures. It's still alright though. And book 12, once again, don't know as much about it. So as you know, in the comic books, the gym teacher always got violated. So he's the villain of the final book. There is a scene where he turns into like a giant smog monster, and there is a lot of interesting concepts of some sort of spray which will make like kids behave. And yeah, I honestly found that concept rather fine. Like, this isn't my favourite concept, and it just feels fine. And I really like what they did with George and Harold here. I'm just going to cut straight to the ending, where George and Harold, like, Captain Underpants can no longer turn into Captain Underpants, which is a very acceptable ending, because some book series just don't end, which I'm sure a lot of people have said before. So yeah, it's a very tolerable ending, and it has a very good ending, actually. The ending's my favourite bit. So, George and Harold end off with choosing to end their Captain Underpants saga, and it ends off with Harold, I think, requesting requesting to George, do you want to make another Captain Underpants book? And George was like, nah, let's do Dogman. It's such a nice little change how they're just kind of going into something new. The comic that started it all, which was proved in book 9, they go back to it. It's a really sweet ending. They kind of just relax after all their adventures. It's a pretty amazing conclusion. Even from not really looking at the full book, I still felt the emotion. And don't get me wrong, I actually have read this book before, because I remember an old photo of me holding this book, but I couldn't find it, so yeah, I don't remember as much. I will say my one nitpick with this book is once again, not as much Captain Underpants. It doesn't really feel like there's as much of him. So we are going to put this book in an exceptional low B tier, I think. Well, yeah, that's my Captain Underpants tier list. I absolutely love Captain Underpants. It's a relatable bit of my childhood. I only really revealed it now, but yes, I absolutely adore it. Anyways, that's all I have to say. See you in the next video. Please subscribe, and I love you all.